Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Luca Morena, CEO of Nextatlas, and I'm joined by Sara Roversi, founder of the Future Food Institute. And what you're about to see is the result of two perspectives converging. So we have predictive intelligence that captures the signals of change and systematic foresight that places them in a wider context. And today we'll explore insights from our joint report that is titled The Exhausted Eater. So how decision fatigue is reshaping food and beverage. And that's the story we want to unpack together. And Sarah and I will guide you through it in dialogue. Hopefully, it will be enjoyable. But before we get into the heart of today's insights, so let me briefly introduce who's speaking with you. So I represent Nextatlas. Nextatlas use AI-powered foresight to detect weak signals, shaping the future, not only in food, but in culture, lifestyle, and society at large. And of course, Sarah, she's founder and president of the Future Food Institute. And I should add a little more about Sarah's perspective and background because it's super interesting. So her work at the Future Food Institute goes well beyond advancing food systems. It's about linking them with culture, innovation, sustainability, and showing that food is never just about feeding people, but about shaping healthier societies and resilient ecosystems. And she's joining us, by the way, from New York, where she's attending and taking part actively, very actively, as she was mentioning before, in the Climate Week there. So Sarah, give us a quick sense in real time, how is going there? How central is food in the conversations you're hearing there?
Thank you so much, Luca. Thank you so much, Nextatlas, for this invitation. I'm super glad to be with you today. Also because what we're going to talk about is essential and is strictly connected with all the different things we are touching here at the summit and every single day. And I would say last month, this increasing anxiety that's been growing and taking over our life. We're always talking about food, but when we're talking about food, we're talking about the most essential thing and the nexus between us and what is surrounding us. If we're talking about the environment, if we're talking about political levels, if we're talking about communities, identities, culture, family, relationship, everything at the end of the game touches food. And every time we gather around the table, we're taking a decision that is honoring our past, celebrating our present, but also connecting us to the future. So this is the reason why we are so exhausted, because it's tough to take decisions. So yes, and in New York, of course, we're talking about that every single day. Lots of summits, lots of events. And of course, we are connecting food with also things that are going further beyond agriculture, because we see food and food security as a top priority, but also water, also soil, also all the other issues that are related to climate, but also related to the political situation that we find around the world every single day.
So it's we are just saying that food actually is the topic, but it's some kind of excuse to say more things about our society. But before we dive into the insights that we are going to provide in the next few minutes, let me briefly walk you through the ecosystem behind the data that we'll be looking at, so that we will be commenting throughout the webinar. So at the center is our Taste OS. It's an overarching intelligence system for food and beverage. And basically it brings together three complementary lenses. So there's Nextatlas, mapping cultural signals and early adopters across industries and showing how broader shifts eventually reach food. And Chef Atlas, note the name, which is interestingly similar to the other one, capturing what food professionals are debating and experimenting with. So it's sourcing, techniques, new ingredients. And then we have Next Menu, so tracking over 32,000 restaurants across Europe, and so translating ideas into what's actually appearing on menus. So this is to give you like a holistic view on all the things that we've been discussing. Let me just mention that Chef Atlas and Next Menu also benefit from the input and collaboration of leading industry players like Barilla. And so this triangulation of sources will feed the insight we'll explore today. And this brings us to the central condition we've identified. So disorientation is I think the main concept here. We called it disoriented appetite. So what do we mean with this? So it's simply that eating, as Sarah was mentioning, it should be, something very reassuring and even joyful and emotionally, interesting. But now it's become something really charged, emotionally charged. So every meal now carries with it the weight of overwhelming choice, conflicting nutritional advice, sustainability guilt, and of course, you might have heard of it, so the ongoing backlash against UPFs, so ultra-processed foods. And so instead of offering comfort, food generates increasingly anxiety and fatigue. So it's really a question now of identity, responsibility, and even morality. And this is why we were talking about exhaustion. So consumers are really not feeling empowered by choice anymore. They are feeling somehow depleted. And maybe this is why food is some kind of a symptom, is just one expression of much bigger conditions. So Sarah, this is actually what you were already saying, but this is important. Do you see this food disorientation as part of a wider cultural confusion, where food becomes actually the mirror of what's happening everywhere, I guess?
Absolutely, yes. And what I see is that basically there's a huge crisis in the concept of trust. What is trust now? Who is telling the truth? If I remember when we were kids, there were your grandma in the kitchen that was telling you, okay, eat more carrots, they're good for your eyes. Very naive things, but now we're not anymore taking decisions in a way where there's someone that we trust that is telling us what to do. And of course, this is something that is creating a huge crash. And also, what is our identity that is basically manifested by our choices? And I think that a big role is played by communication. So I think that if you think about food labels, for example, what is green, sustainable, organic? Finally, yes, we have the certification. It's organic, yes, but who's the certifier? What are the certification? Who's behind that? Oh, I don't trust the one that are creating the certificate because they get money and they maybe are telling not the truth. But then now, this is, of course, going into a larger crash because we have big food industries that are saying, okay, we're going to go to regenerative, buying only products coming from regenerative farm. Global procurement is going to regenerative. Yeah. What is regenerative? Who's creating a system who's really telling the truth to our customer? So I think that there's a systemic failure of communication, transparency, and cultural alignment because basically who's defining what are those labels? So I think that sustainability for causes the largest lens because there's a lot of climate anxiety. And also today, for example, I'm joining lots of different panels where we're talking about climate anxiety. Yes, this is a layer. But on top of that, when you're right in front of the shelves, you cannot recognize what to eat. And so, of course, we see a big trend that is basically reflected in the growth of farmers market. World Farmers Market Coalition, after the Food System Summit, has been growing. Lots of farmers market are taking back presence within cities. And you have a stronger relation between farmers and cities. But then we have food industries that we know are fundamental to feed the planet. So, of course, we need to deal with that. We need to rebuild trust. And this is happening not only food. We need to rebuild trust within generations. We need to build trust between big and large because generally the standard thought is, okay, big is bad, the small is good. But we know that it's not always like that. And so it's tough. It's tough to communicate. I think that now in communication, we need to do the largest effort. And for sure, AI is not helping us. For sure, social media. And I know I'm touching a pain point because this is your work. are not helping us. So our effort also at the Future Food Institute is a lot working on transparency and helping people to understand what's the truth and become ambassadors and spreading the message. Spreading the message is probably one of our responsibilities. Also, the reason why we're attending this kind of summits and the reason why we're spending so much time on that.
You're perfectly right. So I think that we are actually the topic of food has basically inherited a number of problems with our informational environment. You think about health. This is probably since the pandemic. So there's kind of misinformation boost that has been provided by a number of players into the a communication ecosystem. But look at this data. This is incredible. Of course, social media is both an opportunity and a problem here, because of course you discover interesting food trends on TikTok. You have Food Talk and all these things. But also it's a way to detect interesting shifts in consumer expectations and behaviors. This is crazy. So decision fatigue is actually skyrocketing. And then the concepts associated with this kind of food choices are more like expression of mental health conditions. So it's anxiety, it's overwhelming decisions, and there are more. So, and this is then we will see that there are a number of other interesting data points, which are, I think that this is all in the same direction, and you nailed it. It's really about how we communicate stuff on these topics. So this is for instance, about the weight of our choices in food. Look at this data. So I highlighted here the hidden danger in food and beverage. This is predicted to grow, in mention, 96% next year, meaning that people are really not trusting what they eat. So there's kind of a widespread fear in everything we eat, we ingest, we use. If that there is something that is not really visible. And I think this is really the definition of anxiety, and you can see it in every industry. But of course, health and food, they are the most important ones. And so, my question here will be this: but after we are seeing this data from the professional, and professionals that are working in the kitchen. So these are data from Nextatlas. And interestingly, for instance, the topic and the debate on ultra-processed foods like vegetable oils, emulsifiers, additives, they are actually mirroring the consumer conversations. So the debates happening in the professional kitchens is exactly the same that is happening in the supermarkets. So what is sustainable? What is truly safe? What is natural? And so you get to think. So if even experts are caught in this kind of uncertainty, then so how can we rebuild the trust in the system? So this is my question for you. So this is really spreading into the categories, not just the consumers. You can see it here. There's a big slice of global food professionals that are actually discussing what additives are really needed into the food that they are making. So what is the message here, Sarah?
That the system is broken. The system is broken at the cultural level, at the social level. We have been missing what is essential. And so you see that we have been adding. We have been creating additive to create the sense of what? We created businesses without having a clear clue of what is essential for human life. But I was very fascinated by the numbers that you were sharing a few days ago, because when we were working at the beginning with the Institute for the Future, we were, of course, doing lots of ethnographic research, long research, identifying weak signals. And the weak signals that you can find through your data are exactly the same that we are scouting when we're doing deep work with communities. That takes lots of time and months, but at the end of the game, the points are exactly the same. And I strongly believe that as everything, why I started the Future Food Institute. I started the Future Food Institute not because I was a chef, not because I was a farmer, not because I was a foodie, but just because I was fascinated by the multiple roles that food plays in our life. And through food, you can really touch the essential needs of humans. Food is life, food is energy, food is policy, and is a political tool. We are working on gastro diplomacy, not by chance. Gastro diplomacy, it's the essence, because at the end of the game, food is nourishing people, but it's treating people and can be our medicine, as well as now food is the element that is polluting the planet and killing people. Because if you see the number of people that are dying for anger or obesity are, of course, related to what is doing at the end of the game, the industry and our system, in terms of education, in terms of access to food, democratizing good nutrients instead of other things. If you see the level of incentives that at the European level, at national, international brands have been thrown away. I'm saying thrown away as because there was someone that was financing probably a bad system. So now we have a great opportunity because we understood massively that the system is broken, and consumers can play a very, very critical role, because if we help them to get out of the anxiety with their decision, they can really drive the change. And what I see here, and I always try to be positive, because if you look around, sometimes you are saying, okay, we are all going in a bad shape, but I'm very positive because I see lots of leaders that are understanding that and taking responsibility. And what the chefs are telling us is absolutely aligned with what the leaders are doing. I think that chefs can play a very critical role because as well as totally industry leaders, they are the ones that are choosing what you are gonna eat. They can basically kill you or damage your health.
By the way, they became the new influencers. So they are the celebrity chefs.
Only because of their power in influencing people, they're taking choices for you. They're choosing something that is gonna go into your belly, into your gut. So they're taking a decision that is impacting directly on your life.
Yeah.
So I strongly believe that.
Let me give you a glimpse of hope here. So if we look at menus, so this is interesting, coming from 32,000 restaurants across Europe, and this is interesting. So for instance, the humble ingredient extra virgin olive oil. This might be some kind of gastro diplomacy here at work. So it's coming from here, from Italy, from Spain, from Greece, but it has become something like as an anchor for I would say for purity. Is in the name of the ingredient. It's extra virgin, no? So
and I'm proud of that because I've been a big ambassador for that.
And I think this is our kind of ingredient that restores some kind of sense of clarity, and you can see that in the menu. So there's this kind of reactions to that, and this might be unconscious. So you can see that in the data. It's not that people are really, but this is becoming, of course in Italy it's like a staple, but it's becoming really a pan-European kind of symbol of reassurance.
Listen, I want to also add another layer, and I'm happy about that. The reason why is because it's always responsibility of many. And I completely strongly support Make Science Great Again claim, because science has been playing a very critical role. And finally, we have a successful story. Lots of doctors, lots of researchers have been studying and publishing in the last decades, finally declaring what are the effects. And so if you look around, as you know, I'm also serving as a secretary for the Alliance of the Emblematic Communities for Mediterranean Diet. So it is this network of 7 countries, UNESCO heritage, and so on. If you see what they've been doing, of course, extra virgin olive oil has been kind of the emblem of a larger system that is advocating for caring about the planet, caring about health and Mediterranean diet. In these last years, we have seen lots of bullshit online advocating for Mediterranean diet to get thinner, to combat hair loss or other things. At the end of the game, science was raising the attention on the essential things, talking about the role of polyphenols, talking about the role of olive oil in our life, talking about the disease and how olive oil can be the cure and considered like a medicine. So I'm happy because, of course, we
kind
have
of
to connect the dots.
Yeah, it's a nice story. So seeing like these are really menus of restaurants, and so it's really people going and asking for this kind of ingredients. So as for the second topic, so it's like the second chapter of this webinar, then we will have a conclusion. But this is, of course, the reaction that we are looking for as consumers. So we are craving reassurance. So when choice really overwhelms, we seek, trust, as you were saying, simplicity and clarity, and the labels and sourcing are becoming really some kind of an antidote to this fatigue. And but this is another interesting number of data points here. You can see that. So and there's the prediction for food labels here is skyrocketing in terms of people requesting that and talking about them. Verifiability, and again, the discussion about synthetic ingredients, synthetic food, addictive foods. But you can really see in this data that people are really craving and desperate for clarity. So you were saying something about trust, and you at the very beginning, but tell me, is this the new growth driver? Because it seems that this is what if you're thinking about consumer needs, then this is it. So there's nothing, it's not about really, very complex stuff in recipes or whatever. It's really about trust.
It's all about trust, and sincerely speaking, probably we have to quote Carlo Petrini, because he was telling us that when food is gonna lose its soul, its history, humanity is gonna lose any kind of hope. And I think that transparency requires also trustful people and stories that can tell the truth, showing it, and with numbers, with data, also with something that is real. So we need for sure clean menus, we need clean labels, we need everything to be transparent, but we need also people, relationship. Food is something that is strictly related with that. Then we can open up a larger topic that is about synthetic food and all of those things. Of course, if we have to think about global food security and feeding the global population and so on, this is an option, but I strongly support everything that is connecting humans and the planet, thinking about humans as stewards of the planet, active part in agriculture, and a way that agriculture plays a critical role for the equilibrium of our planet. So I'm not basically into, say, the big wave of supporter of a synthetic future, because a synthetic future is, of course, only a synthetic future is, of course, cutting out of the game everything related to values, relationship, consciousness, soul, and we cannot take out.
I have an interesting data points on that, because this is how actually chefs are reacting. So connecting to the regional traditions and cuisines. So I guess this is the counter trend that you are mentioning. So we are, as we move into a realm in which we won't trust, we are going back to what we know best. So our traditions, regional, authenticity, and these are, interesting data again. So it's, of course, Mediterranean and Asian cuisines are dominating the discussions. But what I wanted to ask you here is that I think that regional cuisines are interesting because they are both, of course, rooted in tradition, but they are this kind of things that makes innovation possible, no? In terms of providing new variations and twists and fusions. And I think we are going back there also because it's a nice, interesting playground for culinary creativity. What do you think? Because I see these two components.
Absolutely, yes. And lots of people think that traditional cuisine are just for old people and are something coming from the past. But I am a strong supporter of living heritages at large. And of course, gastronomy is one of the pillar of the intangible heritages. Also, if we think about UNESCO, because there is an entire track that has been exploding in terms of living heritages and gastronomy. And what I always say is that there's not going to be any tradition if we're not investing in innovation today. So to safeguard the living heritage, we need to be able to constantly innovate in a way that we can transfer those heritages to the future. So Mediterranean diet for me is the most incredible playground for innovation. We're doing lots of innovations. If you're talking about climate, if you're talking about sustainability, health, the algorithm for longevity, we are working with innovators and tech people from all around the world, but preserving the essential elements of life, preserving values, preserving humans, and the role of humans in the game. So if we take out humans and soul and consciousness from the game, there's not going to be any future.
Yeah, I think this is actually, this kind of long and deep search for the real soul of food in terms of looking at regional specificities. This is interesting. So this is about cacio e pepe, another Italian staple.
I love that.
It is invading the menus all across Europe, but it's very good, of course, we know that, but it's also 3 ingredients. And this is
super simple.
It's super simple, super legible. You don't have to. It's doable. It's not complex. There's nothing processed there.
And can easily become an Alfredo sauce.
Yeah, but this is actually, I think, another exemplification of what we are saying. So that you don't have to think about complexity to get to innovate. You actually you have to respond to consumer needs where they are. And
exactly.
And this takes us basically to the end, I think, of the discussion here. Of course, we could go on like all the evening here, but so I think that our big takeaway. But then I leave it to you, Sarah, because you are the expert. I'm just here to to bring this kind of insights. But I think that we have to work on this kind of new psychology of trust in the food systems and in food industry at large. So the point is, I think it's the question for you. So how we can build, because this is something very intangible and it's made by different parts, and the food system is very complex and food industry is super complex. So how can we align everything and put trust in the DNA of the food system? So this is of course about education, is about all these holistic aspects. And of course it's also about the enjoyment of food, but how we can recover from, I think this is the question that would apply also to as we said, to the larger questions that we mentioned, like health and everything. But I think this is the core. What you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And answering you, I take also the question of Pranjal, that is asking something that is, I think, strictly connected. Because basically, I think that the magic recipe would be that all people in the food industry start to act as eaters, take decisions as eaters, take decisions as they are the one. Because everyone is expert when we're talking about food, because everyone is eating. Everyone knows that food is medicine, food is care, food is love, food is identity, food is culture. So if we start to think about that, and if we start to think that every time we gather around the table, there are lots of different aspects, geographical, political, our history, our family. What was the dish that my grandma was cooking to me when I was sick? There are lots of things that if we bring as part of our decisions and our conversations are going to be for sure the good guide for all of us in taking decisions.
Yeah, and I think that there's a word that we didn't mention. So alongside with trust, there's truth. So there's the point of a new, let me use technical terms here, a new epistemology of how we read into ingredients, into well-being through food and our food habits. I think that we are moving into the Q&A session. I don't know if we have questions. Oh, well, we have one. So the Pranjal question, I think you already answered. So we have another one from Ono. It's a long one, by the way. And he's saying that sometimes it become a black box, so the food experience. And yeah. And he's working on a model to summarize all the differences made and expressed into something. Okay, so let me just get into the question. So do you see something like an environmental cost identifier as a solution to address the decision fatigue? Is this the kind of simplification we are looking for? So I think that I think it's close to the question that I ask you. So how we can really build something that it's a tool for trust, might be this one or other. So
I give what I had to create for myself, not to get lost. That is not the truth, but I can tell you what has been my experience. I started creating kind of a compass, not to get lost. Finding that integral ecology, that is basically kind of a roadmap on how you can tackle problems from this perspective that is always touching on what's the political mission of that, what the environmental impact is impacting on health and how is benefiting my community, the cultural pillar is preserved and the economic balance is there. And I always try to take decisions putting all the 6 areas in balance. It's tough, but when, as an entrepreneur, I have to take a decision, I always try to answer to this question. I did for myself, and I started using this to guide all of my choices. Of course, it's not so easy, but I started understanding that I had to do more effort to let people jump into the process to understand that at the end of the game, it's not so complex finding a balance. But we need to bring back the value of food in our life. Because if we consider food just as fuel, we're losing everything. And okay, go and get filled. If we start to bring back food in our life with the role that food plays as a nexus between us and society, environment, planet, and so on, then lots of things start to get back sense again.
Yeah, thank you so much. One last thing, what is the biggest takeaway from New York that you have been collecting so far? In just one sentence?
We're talking about exhausted eaters, but I think that we are all exhausted humans now. We need to come back again. No, we don't need rest now. It's not the time to rest. We need to do lots of effort to be come active together. Time to be active. There's lots of good in the planet, and we need to make sure that all this good is coming together now more than ever before. So I think that this is really time to react and show the beauty that we can still find in the planet, because the planet is still a beautiful place, and we need to act to make sure that it's going to be beautiful also for the next generations ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. This has been great. Keep up the good work in New York. Thank you all joining. I can see that this is actually saying everything.
Act as good ancestors. I was wearing this t-shirt because I think that if we think about that, we can go on forever.
It's a great message. It's a great message. So it's been a pleasure, Sarah. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of you attending the webinar. Until next time, and goodbye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Ciao.